Drake? What? Where's the body of Christ? Happy Easter, everyone. Welcome to IMO Reviews, where we do reviews in my opinion. I mean, I don't know why I say we. It's only me. I'm the only guy here. But anyway, I'm not just like a midget on top of another midget, and we're just like in a suit or something. And it's only me. But anyway, today we're going to review the Weeknd's new album, After Hours. The Weeknd is a staple in R&B music. He has been so for a couple of years now. He's one of the greatest artists of this generation for R&B. Definitely pioneering a lot of new alternative styles for it, while still keeping a popular mainstream audience, collaborating with artists like Daft Punk, as well as Ed Sheeran, Lana Del Rey, and the list goes on and on. The Weeknd has been known to make music that is sad, depressing, heartbreaking, haunting in a sense, and we've seen this on his House of Balloons mixtape when he first blew up onto the scene. But I have to say, by far, this is probably The Weeknd's most depressing album, which is expected, being that he's had a string of not so great romances with people like Selena Gomez recently. He's kind of fallen into some addictions, and this album is certainly a reflection of that. And we can already see the themes of heartbreak and the post-romantic life and the struggles of it within The Weeknd's first track, Alone Again, where he sings on the chorus, "I don't know if I can be alone again. I don't know if I can sleep alone again. I took too much. I don't want to die. I don't know if I can be alone again." Basically saying that he feels like now that he's been left by these people, he feels cold, he feels lonely, he feels depressed because of it. And the production is definitely also a reflection of that, because it has some very bouncy piano keys throughout this, some synthesizers. I like how these kind of echo throughout the song, and how they even continue on the track when the heavy trap drums come in halfway through the song to kind of give a bit more of an upbeat, dancey groove to the song. The whole atmosphere surrounding this is just very dark, very lo-fi, very dismal in a sense. But also with those trap drums, it has a bit of aggression to it. I would say, looking at the first half of this album, actually, up into the track Blinding Lights, all these songs seem to have a combination of very lo-fi, moody, gloomy instrumentals that also have some catchy synthesizer melodies on it, but include trap drums with production from people like Metro Boomin, which I would say is the perfect combination for The Weeknd to express this kind of heartbreak and this failure to deal with his addictions, as he talks about on many of the tracks here within the first half of the album. Two of my favorite songs on the first half of this are Hardest to Love and Scared to Live. It seems like on songs like Hardest to Live, The Weeknd is kind of blaming himself for some mistakes that he's made in past relationships that have led to the certain demise of them. The beat kind of reminds me of something that Aha would have done back in the day, or perhaps Moby, but maybe twisted a bit to give it a updated 2020 feel, in a sense, so that it's more appeasing to a mainstream pop audience. But it definitely has that 80s influence. I love the melody on this track. I love the lyrics about him being the hardest to love, and how this woman is trying to let her go, but like she feels like she can't for whatever reason. Perhaps because the love for The Weeknd that she has is very strong, despite his not so good actions and not so good ways of treating her. This is apparent within the first two lines of the song, where he says, "You try with me so many times, you're crying out behind the smiles, and I can see right through the lies." He knows that he's a difficult person to love, and it seems like he genuinely wants to be better for her, but it's difficult for him to do so. The song following that, Scared to Live, also kind of continues that 80s style music with some synthesizers that also sound like they could be on perhaps like Childish Gambino's Kawaii EP, if that song had more depressing undertones to it, I suppose, or if the songs in that EP were a bit dreamier and gloomier. This one has an equally catchy chorus, and it's basically saying that he's scared to live again after this relationship. He's not really sure what to do with himself because it meant so much to him at the time that he's not really sure how to be alone, which again he talked about within the first track of this album. I think he's kind of alluding to the girl in question having a bit of a struggle of finding someone else to love as well, because he says in the second verse here, "You always miss the chance to fall for someone else, because your heart only knows me. They try to win your love, but there was nothing left. They just made you feel lonely." As if saying that she too is so used to this relationship that's hard for her to break off. And it's interesting to hear such a slow ballad instrumental right after the catchy one that we saw on Hardest to Love, even though both these songs have depressing lyrics and depressing stories to them. Escape from LA is the kind of song that just sounds completely numbing, but in a depressive and artistic way, despite Metro Boomin having a heavy hand in the trap style percussion here. This song to me, I immediately thought of what would be BoJack Horseman's theme, but in the later episodes of the series where he kind of realizes that he doesn't want to live in LA, and it seems like the Weeknd's going through a similar thing, where on the chorus he says, "Well, this place is never what it seems. Take me out of LA. Take me out of LA. This place will be the end of me. Take me out of LA." Just trying to escape in any way. And it's clear that the addictions that the Weeknd is talking about and that have been made public, he's kind of saying that LA as an environment wasn't one that was very supportive of him trying to defeat this, which perhaps could have played a part in leading to the heartbreak that he's felt and the demise of the relationships he spoke about earlier in this album. It's especially indicated in the first verse when there's lyrics like, "Girl, when you're ready, you know why I stay. But when it comes to these hoes, I'll never chase. But this world is such an evil place. Man, these hoes will always find a way, because when I'm on the liquor, I go crazy, and for the pussy, you know I'm a slave." Basically saying that his drinking habits have kind of played a part in him not being able to maintain the relationship. Once again, I love the very gloomy, moody beat on this one. A lot of the first half of this album seems like something you could equally dance and cry to, with the trap drums kind of giving it a party feel, but the synthesizers and the other lo-fi mixed instruments in there giving it a more depressing feel. The Weeknd manages to balance both of these very well. Although I wouldn't say every song in this first half is perfect necessarily. For example, Too Late, while it feeds into the theme of the breakup that the Weeknd is speaking about on this album, I feel like, unlike the other tracks here, it's a bit more of a basic perspective on it, just saying, "It's too late for me, I love you again." I mean, it's kind of expected with a breakup usually. It just seems like he doesn't have as unique of a perspective in this song as he does on tracks like Hardest to Love, Scared to Live, Escape from LA. Though I will say Too Late is one of my favorite instrumentals with the bouncy synthesizers and the echoing keys throughout it and the very fast-paced drums. I think it's one of the more faster flowing songs despite it being a bit more basic lyrically. Snow Child too I liked a lot. The keys are very moody as far as the whole instrumental goes. It sounds kind of like something Kanye would have maybe put on the Ye album, because that album had a lot of organs and keys throughout it. It sounds like something of that nature, but a bit moodier, a bit darker. But again, the lyrics here, I just feel like they don't really play into the theme of the album so much, making the song feel a bit out of place. It seems like the Weeknd's kind of trying to have more of a rap flow in the verses, but he's singing it with such a weak delivery that it sounds like he's struggling to kind of have some breath control throughout it. I mean, I did like lines like the reference, "I was blowing smoke, had me dizzy like Gillespie," referring to Dizzy Gillespie, the jazz musician. I think that was a pretty good line, and there's a few more of them out here, such as "Sack Couple M's" like "I was shady, now I'm in Tribeca" like Jay-Z, but it doesn't really make sense when he then goes into talking about this girl again. I just don't see what those other lyrics have to do with the theme of this song or this album, despite them being kind of some clever play on words. The whole song feels a bit out of place to the album, although I wouldn't say it's an awful track. I would say that the song that really stands out amongst the first half of this album is "Heartless." It has these banging Metro Boomin drums, this thick, fat bass on the track. The lyrics are a lot about the Weeknd saying that he's heartless, he's back to his ways, he's not really going to let his emotions get to him now. He talks a lot about doing drugs and fucking people everywhere and just a bunch of wild party things like that. So it's the kind of song where you can really party to and enjoy while it's on and dance to, but at the same time, if you listen deeper to the lyrics, this man is clearly depressed and kind of going on a bender because of it. There's a lot of catchy, typical rap braggadocio throughout the verse, as though the Weeknd's singing it. But I think it's most apparent on the bridge. I lost my heart and my mind. I try to always do right. I thought I lost you this time. You just came back in my life. You never gave up on me. I'll never know what you see. I don't do it well. I don't do well when alone. You hear it clear in my tone. So I think there's kind of this undertone here that even though he's partying, he's doing this wild shit, he's clearly a broken man. Now, what I really like about the song Faith is that The Weeknd seems to be using this comparison of his increased drug use and experimentation with drugs to him losing his religion or his religious faith in a sense, or his faith in a person. That's apparent with lines like light a blunt up with the flame, put the cocaine on a plate, Molly with the purple rain because I lost my faith. Later, I believe he talks about taking Xans. Yes, he says, I take half a Xan and I stay awake. All my demons want to pull me to my grave. I chose Vegas if they offer Heaven's Gate, which is interesting because a lot of the music videos for this take place in Vegas, which is a place that is full of people with these awful addictions to gambling and drinking and smoking and sexual addictions as well. Now, once again, there's a very catchy chorus here, catchy melody like most of the songs on this. There's also these banging arpeggiated bass synthesizers throughout it, and an 80s feel to the structure and the melodic sound of the song. My issue with this one, I would say, the only issue I particularly have with this one is he has some lines that seem a bit manipulative to the person of his interest, such as, but if I OD, I want you to OD right beside me. I want you to follow right behind me. I want you to hold me while I'm smiling, while I'm dying, which, while these lyrics are very deep and very dark, I would say, and have a strange romantic tone, I think that saying that you want someone to OD beside you seems a bit manipulative, saying that, well, I do these drugs and I abuse them. I'm trying to get you to as well, just because I have this romantic interest in you, which is, it's very manipulative. I think it was kind of an off-putting part of the song, despite the other things I love about the song Faith. Blinding Lights, and I knew this when it was single, is by far my favorite song on this album. If you know me, you know I dance to this frequently to the point of exhaustion. A lot of the song is basically saying that the Weeknd is lost without the person's touch and needs them, is going through withdrawals as if the person is some kind of drug. He talks about being in this cold, empty city, and he can't see as clearly when he's gone. He needs this person in order to see and navigate through life. Um, it's also very interesting considering in Faith he was talking about seeing blinding lights from the back of a cop car, and now having this song come in titled Blinding Lights, talking about being blinded by these lights and needing this person to see, being lost without their touch. I think it's a very interesting change of pace in the album, as well as instrumentally, because this song, while it still has the 80s influence, it sounds more upbeat, it's faster paced. There's a lot of synthesizers and electronic dance music drums influenced in this. It's very bouncy, it's very erratic. The groove of it almost feels like a disco song, but again, updated to fit the 90s pop aesthetic. But there's very clear, distinct 80s influence and disco music influence, which I think makes it an excellent song to dance to, an excellent sounding track with a, once again, very catchy melodic chorus. Next song, In Your Eyes, kind of carries out that theme again of the synth heavy 80s style disco flashy aesthetic that and sounds that you're hearing on Blinding Lights. It kind of has that in a similar way with the just as catchy, just as groovy structure to the track. But this one also features some excellent saxophone that I'm reading here was actually performed by Thomas Jansen, and the outro of these saxophones sounds amazing. It's very funky and groovy on top of the synth heavy song. What I like about this one lyrically is it seems like the Weeknd's kind of starting to accept more that this person is gone, whereas in Blinding Lights he was saying, I need this person, because now he says, just pretend that I'm in the dark, don't regret because my heart can take a loss, which is very contradictory to the first half of this album. I'd rather be so oblivious, I'd rather be with you. But he says in the pre-chorus, when it's said, when it's done, I don't ever want to know, I can tell what you done when I look at you. And he says in the chorus, in your eyes, I see there's something burning inside. In your eyes, I know it hurts to smile, but you try to. I think it's basically saying, like, he recognizes that he's still hurt. He recognizes that the person that went through this kind of chaotic relationship with him is also hurt, but he's beginning to, I think, see the light on the other side. He's beginning to accept it a bit more. Save Your Tears is another song that continues this trend of the new disco, synthwave, 80s pop retro vibe that the second half of this album was going for, as opposed to the moody, dreary, but trap inspired first half of the album, which is a bit sadder and slower. This one's more upbeat, this one's more danceable. It seems like he's kind of trying to convince this person that he won't hurt them again, but also making it like it's their fault for not speaking up about the issues, like within these lyrics. But in the chorus, he's saying, "Save your tears for another day, take me back as I want to stay." So it seems like he wants to get this person back, but I don't know. I don't particularly like the fact that he's saying some things are our fault, like you should have brought up what was breaking your heart. I feel like, again, it's kind of manipulative in a sense of like you should kind of be more aware of your partner's problems. Like, yes, communication is important, of course, but I think also sensing people's emotions is important as well, so that you can ask about what they're feeling in the first place. But I digress. Regardless of if the Weeknd is at fault here or not, it's a very catchy song. It's very danceable. Excellent groove to it as always. And again, I love the 80s influence on this, but how it's updated a bit for the modern pop audience. Repeat After Me was an interesting song. I wouldn't say it's my favorite here, but I like one. I like how Kevin Parker of Tame Impala actually produced part of this, which I didn't know until I looked it up. But I think that was great. I wish they would collaborate more often. But the chorus of this is hilarious because he's saying, "You don't love him, you don't love him, because you're thinking of me when you love him. You're just fucking. It means nothing." I think it's kind of funny, and it seems like he's a bit more confident in where he stands now in this post relationship world, because it seems like now he's saying like, yeah, well, I may not be doing so well, but you're just fucking guys. Like, you don't actually love them because you're still thinking of me. Almost like now the Weeknd has the upper hand, I suppose, in this relationship, or the demise of this relationship. However, After Hours completely contradicts this, because this is like a 6 minute apology to the woman now, basically saying like he's sorry that he broke your heart. He's in his darkest hours. The chorus here is very depressing, saying, "Where are you now when I need you most? I'd give it all just to hold you close. Sorry that I broke your heart. I'll treat you better than I did before. I'll hold you down, not let you go." I feel like this indicates that the Weeknd is at a point in a post breakup where he doesn't really know how to feel. I think some days he feels like he's better off without the partner, but some days he feels like he wants the partner. I think that's apparent with how this instrumental, despite the second half of this album being more dance and neo disco tracks, this one kind of goes back to that moodier balladry that we saw in the first half of the album. It's very atmospheric, it's very moody, it's very dreary in a sense, it's depressing, it's dark. It's cold. It sounds very cold if I were to describe it as a as a temperature, I guess. It also reminds me quite a bit of Pyramids by Frank Ocean, where the song starts off at like this low level with barely any drums, minimal instrumentation, but it builds into this club kind of sounding track, because when the drums come in towards the second half of this, it suddenly becomes a very danceable, very catchy, groovy song, despite the depressed nature of the Weeknd's lyrics. Until I Bleed Out was an okay song, not exactly a highlight for me. I feel like it just says a lot about what we've heard before. I mean, I do like the intro where he says, "I can't move, I'm so paralyzed, I'm so paralyzed, I can't explain why I'm terrified." It definitely shows a lot of vulnerability for the Weeknd to dig this deep in the feeling of heartbreak, but I feel like at this point we've heard it a lot of times throughout the album. Plus, it's not one of the best instrumentals. I wish there was kind of a bit of a better outro for this, especially because I love many of the songs on the second half of this record. I would say overall, despite this album not being perfect from front to back, this is one of the best R&B projects I've heard in a while. It has a lot of depth to it. It has a lot of diversity within the instrumentals, um, a lot of very catchy melodies, and a lot of emotional vulnerability from The Weeknd. I don't think we've ever seen him this open about his pain, his addictions, his heartbreak, his mistakes. I don't think we've ever seen him be this honest about it. Um, and I hope that he continues to make a lot of music like this. I love the 80s influence. I think that he should kind of bring a lot of those trends back, but modify them for a pop music audience like he's done here on After Hours. Overall, I would give this record 4.5 muffins because I'm really fucking hungry and I love muffins. I could use some muffins, but alas, the bakery is closed by me and I'm afraid somebody will sneeze on it. And then I got a COVID-19 muffin. I ain't trying to eat that shit, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not trying to eat that shit. So, um, happy Easter, everyone. Stay safe. For my people in New York, we're doing so well so far with flattening the curve. I'm from New York, if you didn't know. For my people in New York, we're doing so well with flattening the curve. I just hope that we really continue to keep our distance, to self-isolate, so that we can flatten it even more and eventually defeat this virus. So keep up the good work. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Happy Easter, everyone.